UFC Fight Night Vegas, Jessica Eye versus Cynthia Calvillo takes place this weekend, and yes, that's right, you are awake, you are not dreaming right now. Those words did in fact come out of my mouth. Jessica Eye versus Cynthia Calvillo is the main event of this card. However, regardless of how bad the main event is, we've still got work to do. I'm going to be going through the entire card, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, and starting with the early prelim opener of Anthony Ivey versus Christian Aguilera. Great fight on the card. You've got the number one welterweight, regional welterweight in the US out of Texas right now. Anthony Ivey is the best welterweight in Texas outside the UFC right now, which is pretty damn good if you ask me. And Christian Aguilera is the number 2 welterweight in US West, which is kind of a good matchup, to be honest with you. These guys are not bums that have just been added to the card last minute. I actually feel like these guys were well due their moment in the UFC if they kept going on the path that they're currently going at, but I am going to side with Anthony Ivey here. I feel like he's on a bit more of a better momentum than Christian Aguilera. Christian Aguilera has had a few more losses, a few more setbacks in his career, and Anthony Ivey has been on a streak recently since losing 2 of his early fights in his career. I think he's on a 6-fight win streak right now over some pretty respectable names, guys who are 7-1, guys who are 6-1, some decent guys. He's beat the lot of them. Anthony Ivey's on a streak right now. Also, Christian Aguilera is I do want to warn you about this, guys. This fight does not go the distance. I will say that, because Christian Aguilera either gets finished or finishes you in the first round. I don't think he's going to beat Anthony Ivey in the first round, because I know for a fact that Anthony Ivey has done his research. We've seen enough of Christian Aguilera where if you're that crazy guy that comes out there in the first round to knock everyone's head off, it works for a certain amount of time until people find out who you are. Now we know who Aguilera is, and there's a lot of footage of him doing this kind of stuff in the first round with some amazing KOs. Anthony Ivey's going to have seen that footage. He knows exactly what Aguilera is going to do. I'm going to side with Anthony Ivey. He's got a better chin as well. He's never been finished by strikes in his career. Christian Aguilera, on the other hand, has been finished, I think, about 5 times to a TKO in his career, so I am going to go with Anthony Ivey getting the job done.'s going to ride out the storm in the first round, turn it around in the second, and get it finished in the second round by TKO. Moving on to the second fight on the early prelims, Jourdain Griffin versus Darrick Minner. Great fight. Jourdain Griffin is a great fighter. He's only lost to some really great guys in the UFC, but Darrick Minner, coming off a loss to Grant Dawson recently, got through on the Contender Series against an absolute bum. I like Darrick Minner. I don't respect his record. I don't respect the people he's fought to get his record, because there's been quite a few bums on that list, including the last guy he fought on the Contender Series to get his shot back in the UFC against Grant Dawson on short notice. Jourdain Griffin, on the other hand, I do respect his losses. I don't really do it for Darrick Minner. The losses that Darrick Minner has, shame on him. Other than the Grant Dawson one, I can maybe allow, but shame on him otherwise. Jourdain Griffin, on the other hand, had a great fight with Dan Ige. If you don't remember that fight with Dan Ige was doing real well in that first round, but in the second and third round, you actually saw Jourdain Griffin start to outstrike Dan Ige, but Dan Ige scored a couple takedowns that may have won him a round or 2. It was a really close fight, really competitive, and I have a lot of respect for Dan Ige. Even though I thought he lost to Edson Barboza, I have a lot of respect for him, even to make it close against Edson Barboza. You're a really good fighter, so I am going to pick Jourdain Griffin here. I respect his losses a bit more, and that's the only common theme I can see between the two of them, that they both have a lot of losses. I respect Jourdain Griffin's way more. I think he's going to get the job done. Not to mention he beat a guy in his last fight called TJ Brown, who is the main training partner of Bryce Mitchell. TJ Brown is the main training partner of Bryce Mitchell. Jourdain Griffin got a submission off on him. I think that's a pretty good stat, to be honest. If Jourdain Griffin's going to win this fight, I like him. I think he's going to get it done. Moving on up the card, Ryan Benoit versus Tyson Nam. Completely evens on the odds. No one really knows who's going to win this one. I actually think that Ryan Benoit is going to end up a bit more of a favourite, or a bit more of a favourite coming up to the event when people actually start betting on him, because he's a younger guy. I'm still going to pick Tyson Nam. I really am. I thought Tyson Nam did pretty good against Kai Kara-France, although getting completely outstruck the entire fight. It wasn't by a massive margin. He was doing quite well in that Kai Kara-France fight. I mean, Kai Kara-France definitely won, but Tyson Nam put up a bit of a fight in some of those rounds. And then you look at Ryan Benoit's career, he started on a bit of a good run, he started having some losses here and there, then he took about 3 years off, and since coming back, he hasn't really been able to string any wins together whatsoever. So he came back at the start of 2019, and since then has lost a grappling bout to Jorge Vasquez, just to get him into the swing of things, I'm assuming, and then he came back against Eli Alateng, who's someone I don't really have a lot of respect for, and lost a split decision. I think Tyson Nam's going to get a jump on him. He's a bigger guy, even though he has a reach disadvantage. I think he's just going to be a bigger guy. I think he's going to get the job done. Tyson Nam gets it done over Ryan Benoit. Moving on, Julia Alvila versus Gina Mazzani. Great fight. Julia Alvila was supposed to be fighting Carol Rosa on this card. They have been trying to make those two girls fight. Both pretty good recorded girls, which is not something common in the UFC, I must say. Like, these are actually two good fighters between Julia Alvila and Carol Rosa. They were supposed to fight about 4 different times during this whole global worldwide sneezing situation. Gina Mazzani stepped in on short notice since Carol Rosa stepped out. Gina Mazzani's not very good, although she's very hot and fuckable. She's not very good at fighting. Julia Alvila is going to get the job done. She's the bigger girl at the weight class as well. Gina Mazzani taking it on short notice. I'm not willing to bet against Julia Alvila here. I think she gets the job done. Moving on. Charles Rosa versus Kevin Aguilar. Great fight. Really good fight. Actually, this card isn't that bad. The more I go through every single fight on this card, it isn't even that bad. Charles Rosa versus Kevin Aguilar is a decent fight. And by the way, I'm going off of my own makeshift rank. I'm going off my own makeshift schedule right now because the UFC has not fully updated their schedule, showing you just how little care they have for this card that they've put on. If the main event wasn't a clue enough, them not updating their schedule with all of the fights that are supposed to be there is another big fuck you to every UFC fan, showing them that, hey, the UFC doesn't give a fuck about this card. We're not even willing to update our schedule on Google because we're only $1 billion company. But either way, we've got to get back to this card. Charles Rosa versus Kevin Aguilar. Decent fight. Apparently headlining the prelims, but who fucking knows? They haven't even added every fight, so it might not be. But Charles Rosa versus Kevin Aguilar, great fight. I don't want people to judge Charles Rosa by his loss to Bryce Mitchell. I really don't want that to happen because I don't want you to take away from that fight that Charles Rosa is trash. He isn't. At all. Charles Rosa is the same guy who submitted Manny Bermudez in his last fight. He's a good fighter. And Manny Bermudez, although he just got cut from the UFC, is a young guy with a great record who says he cut himself from the UFC just so he could build himself up and come back. But Charles Rosa got the jump on him, got the submission in the first round. Kevin Aguilar coming off a bad KO loss to Zubaira Tukhugov. Not a bad one because it's Zubaira Tukhugov. He's a very good fighter. However, Kevin Aguilar is coming off that KO loss. Charles Rosa is coming off a loss as well, but one that was a little bit less damaging concussion-wise because he didn't really take any heavy blows from Bryce Mitchell. I mean, he was hitting some ground and pound, but in terms of Kevin Aguilar getting fucking plastered against the side of the cage from Zubaira Tukhugov and then landing a couple follow-up punches while Kevin Aguilar's out cold almost, Charles Rosa's taken a little bit less damage. I'm going to go with Charles Rosa. I think he's got better jiu-jitsu. I think he's better on the feet because here's something a lot of people don't know about Charles Rosa. Don't watch the Bryce Mitchell... Actually, do watch the Bryce Mitchell fight because it's amazing to watch Bryce Mitchell go to work. Don't judge him by that fight. Judge him from the Shane Burgos fight not too long ago when Shane Burgos was coming into the UFC. Shane Burgos right now is a guy in the featherweight division which I think could eventually become a top contender and a champion maybe at one point. I mean, Shane Burgos is a dark horse of that featherweight division fighting Josh Emmett next weekend. I'm sure that'll be a much more fun card to break down. But Charles Rosa was beating Shane Burgos on the feet. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He was clearly outstriking Shane Burgos. I mean, it was a close fight. It was going back and forth. Burgos was landing some cleaner punches. But Charles Rosa clearly outstruck Shane Burgos in those first 2 rounds. Regardless if you want to give both of them to Charles Rosa, because they were pretty close. That's no small feat on the feet against Shane Burgos. Charles Rosa was amazing in that fight. Eventually, Shane Burgos, his pressure and his pace, like he did to Makwan Amirkhani, got the better of Charles Rosa, who slowed down in the 3rd round. But Charles Rosa, I think, is going to win this fight over Kevin Aguilar. I actually think he's going to get it done by KO. With Aguilar coming off a short turnaround after a KO loss to Zubaira Tukhugov, I think Charles Rosa could get it done, and I think he's going to get it done, you know what? By a head kick. He's got some pretty vicious kicks and he throws them real hard. I think he's going to land on Kevin Aguilar and get it done with a kick of any kind to any part of the body. Charles Rosa gets the finish. Marina Agapova versus Hannah Cifers. Hannah Cifers stepping up on short notice to take on Maria Agapova. Maria Agapova is the best female fighter out of Russia right now. That's pretty damn good, and they're known for their tough women, and Maria Agapova is the best there right now out of their regional circuit, or maybe at strawweight. I don't think it's over all weight classes, of course. But Maria Agapova is a phenom. I think she's going to get the job done. I was actually really looking forward to her fight that was originally on this card. However, that has to change. Her original opponent was a really good fighter as well. Let me actually find out the name of her original opponent real quick so I can give her some credit. She was supposed to be fighting Oh, am I wrong? Melissa Gatto, who was 6-0 and 2. A decent fighter, coming off a bit of a streak, had some draws in her career, but also undefeated. It was a great competitive fight. I think she's going to get the better of Hannah Cifers. Hannah Cifers was doing good against Mackenzie Dern, don't get me wrong, but this is a short notice turnaround. I don't know how her knee is okay after that Mackenzie Dern submission, because that did not look okay. I'll be honest with you, it looked like Mackenzie Dern tore her knee to shreds. Either way, Maria Agapova's going to get the job done. I just think with Hannah Cifers wanting to keep things on the feet, and she just walks forward head first, she's going to walk into some slick combinations from Maria Agapova all night long, and I think Maria Agapova is going to take this to decision, outclassing Hannah Cifers every round on the feet and stuffing every takedown. Moving on up the card to the main card. Jourdain Espinosa versus Mark De La Rosa. Great fight. Amazing fight. I don't mind it. It's not an amazing fight. I'll take that one back. It's not a great fight. I'll take that one back as well. I'm sorry for getting overhyped. It's a good fight. I'll take that one back. It's a decent fight. I don't know what noise just came out of my mouth, but it's a decent fight between Jourdain Espinosa and Mark De La Rosa, taking place at bantamweight, which I feel actually favours Mark De La Rosa because he's fought there a lot of times before, but I'm still going to pick Jourdain Espinosa because despite being the less natural bantamweight, even though he's the same height, he has a 10 centimetre reach advantage, which is about 4 inches, and at flyweight, 4 inches goes a long way, okay? It really does. That 4 inches reach advantage in such a small weight class. At heavyweight, a 4-inch reach advantage is important. At flyweight, and especially even though this is taking place at bantamweight, they're both natural flyweights. I feel like even Mark De La Rosa is going to continue his career at flyweight after this one, I believe. Jourdain Espinosa is going to get the job done. I don't know if Mark De La Rosa actually is going to continue his career at flyweight because I don't even think he's going to be continuing his career with the UFC after this one. I'm going to go with Jourdain Espinosa getting a job done by TKO in the first round. You've got Mark De La Rosa coming off a KO loss already to Howley Pava, which was pretty savage. Only in February, he's taken this quick of a turnaround. Fair enough, he's not cutting the same amount of weight, but Jourdain Espinosa is going to catch him on the chin and put him out cold in that first round. Jourdain Espinosa gets the job done. Andre Fili versus Charles Jourdain. These fights are actually kind of good. These next 3 fights I'm about to list before the main event are actually pretty good. Andre Fili versus Charles Jourdain. I think it's kind of silly to go against Andre Fili at this point. I didn't even mean that to rhyme, but it is silly to go against Fili at this point. It really is. Andre Fili is a heavy favourite, and I kind of feel this way about a lot of the fights coming up. I don't know, I'm not going to say which ones yet, but I'll get to them in a second. I feel like this favourite is justified. Charles Jourdain is very good, don't get me wrong, but we really don't know how good Doo Ho Choi is. Really, I know Doo Ho Choi did beat, who the fuck did he beat? Who did Doo Ho Choi beat? That's the thing. I think Doo Ho Choi was a little bit overhyped. I mean, I did pick him to beat Charles Jourdain, but Charles Jourdain shocked me and got the job done. But I still think that Doo Ho Choi was a little bit overhyped. He did beat a lot of cans to get into the UFC, and I don't remember any of their names. I mean, he got his notoriety by getting beat up by Cub Swanson for 3 rounds. And if you watch that fight again, although it was classified as an absolute war back and forth, I mean, it was competitive at moments. I mean, Doo Ho Choi did crack Cub Swanson at a few times in the fight and was doing good in the early part of that first round. But Cub Swanson was beating the shit out of him the majority of that fight. Like, that was a real beatdown from Cub Swanson. I know Doo Ho Choi came back a little bit. I just feel like he's a little bit overhyped. Got KO'd by Stevens. Then he got finished by Charles Jourdain after he broke his arm as well. Charles Jourdain is going to lose to Andre Fili. I just don't like it. I've seen Charles Jourdain completely dominated on the ground by Desmond Green, I want to say. Is that the name of the guy? Desmond Green? Let me look it up right now. Yes, indeed, Desmond Green, the guy who likes to play bumper cars and sniff stuff on the sidelines, now in prison. Desmond Green completely dominated him on the ground. I respect Andre Fili's wrestling capabilities more than I do Desmond Green. Even though Desmond Green is up a weight class, I still respect Andre Fili's capabilities a bit more. And I think Andre Fili's going to get the job done. His striking's come a long way. He's not coming off a whole ton of damage. He had a bit of a layoff since the Sadiq Youssef fight at UFC 246 in January. That's a decent amount of time off, especially because he didn't get KO'd or anything. He still took 6 months off. That's good for me. I think Andre Fili's going to go in there, get the job done, be back in his winning ways. I think he's going to get it done by decision, taking Charles Jourdain to the ground at the end of every round to secure them over the time. Over the 15 minutes. He'll get the job done. Andre Fili, unanimous decision. Moving on, Merab Dvalishvili versus Ray Borg. This guy, Merab. Merab, coming off of Dana White's looking for a fight. He was actually supposed to be fighting some Savage on Dana White's looking for the fight as well. He got the KO immediately. He was a huge underdog on Dana White's looking for a fight. He was supposed to be fighting Raytheon Stotts. And I don't know who this guy is, but he trains at Rufus Sport. That's who this guy is. He is known in the MMA community, and before the Merab Dvalishvili fight, he was completely undefeated, destroying absolutely everyone, touted to be the next big thing in the UFC, but Merab Dvalishvili came in on short notice, on looking for a fight, and KO'd him with a spinning back fist in 15 seconds. The grappler Merab went in there and spinning back fisted him in 15 seconds, and since then, Raytheon Stotts has gone on to win his next 5 in a row against some decent opponents. Like, it wasn't like he had fought Cans until he fought Merab and then he got beaten. He fought Merab, lost, and then went on to prove Merab's win better by completely annihilating his next 5 opponents. And now his record is what? 13-1. He'll probably be getting a call up to the UFC soon. Merab Dvalishvili's a beast. I love watching him fight. I actually think he could probably be 4-0 or 5-0 in the UFC right now. He just beat Casey Kenny, and here's another thing about Merab. His wins get better over time, a lot of them. He beat Casey Kenny, destroyed him. Casey Kenny just went out there and annihilated his last opponent. I think last week, actually, he got the submission in the first round, completely dominated. Ricky Simone is a guy who, in my opinion, Merab could have arguably beaten. And here's what I'm talking about, where it could as well be 5-0 in the UFC. I thought he beat Frankie Sains, in which fight he lost a split decision to. I thought he actually could have won that fight. So that's 1-0, if we're actually going to look at things without robberies. Then you look at the Ricky Simone fight, which was a weird decision because the choke was held a little bit after the bell, the fight was over, but Merab was out cold. I kind of agree with that one, but still, a little bit of controversy there. Then Merab was winning the entire fight, and that's something that not a lot of people can say against Ricky Simone. I mean, Uriah Faber can catch Ricky Simone, but Faber was losing that fight before then. You know, like Rob Font can go to war with Ricky Simone and win a really close decision. Ricky Simone is no slouch. And Merab was handling him quite well in those early rounds, before the end when Ricky Simone got the choke, but Ricky Simone did get that choke. But since then, Merab has gone on a 3-fight win streak, completely dominating every single one of them, including a big win over Brad Katona as well, who is no slouch in the grappling department. Got the job done over him. Got the job done over Casey Kenny, who again is no slouch in the grappling department. And Ray Borg, who is also no slouch in the grappling department, is going to be the next victim of Merab Dvalishvili. I think he'll get the job done. He's just way bigger. He's got a huge reach advantage. He's way stronger. Ray Borg's coming off a big win. And also, the only reason I'd give Ray Borg a chance in this fight originally is because Merab took it on short notice. However, Merab trains at Serra-Longo BJJ. Another bantamweight just fought for a title elimination bout, last card. Who do you think his main training partner was? That's right, it was Merab Dvalishvili. So he's been in camp with Aljamain Sterling for this whole Corey Sandhagen build-up. He's had a camp pretty much. I know he hasn't had a fight signed, but he's been in a camp and has been ready to go hard sparring rounds with Aljamain Sterling, which means you've got to be in shape to go the distance. Merab Dvalishvili is going to get the job done. I think he's going to be in shape and he's going to just completely drown Ray Borg on the ground for 3 rounds. But I'm rooting for Ray Borg because it would be a real David versus Goliath moment if he did get the job done. Good luck to you, Ray Borg. I respect you for taking this fight on short notice after your last loss to Ricky Simone. Merab gets it done. And even a Ricky Simone, I know MMA math doesn't really work, but they're both grapplers versus Ricky Simone. Merab did a way better job than Ray Borg did. Like, I know MMA math doesn't really work all the time, but when they're both the same style, it kind of does. Merab's going to get the job done over Ray Borg. He's way bigger as well. Moving on to the co-main event. The best fight on this card, in my opinion, the co-main event. Carl Roberson versus Marvin Vettori. I got to speed this shit up because I've got a lot to say about the main event. Carl Roberson versus Marvin Vettori. Originally, the odds were closer. Didn't mind Roberson as an underdog. I was picking Marvin Vettori to win, but I understood how much of a threat Carl Roberson was to him and how close this fight was really. Carl Roberson is no slouch, coming off a big win over Roman Kopylov, who is no slouch. I've said that a lot this video, but there are a lot of big wins on this card that some of these guys have. Carl Roberson did very well against him, showed very crisp striking. Even against Glover Teixeira on short notice, he had Glover in all kinds of trouble in that first round before Glover eventually dragged him to the ground and got the job done. At that time, I thought of it as Glover Teixeira is this old man who Carl Roberson couldn't even beat and KO. Now I think of it as Glover Teixeira is one fight away from a title shot, And Carl Roberson had his moments. Like, it's a different perspective that I have now that we know how good Glover still is in his old age, rather than thinking that he was an old withering guy, in the words of Alexander Hernandez. Withering. Marvin Vettori, though, is going to get the job done. He's bigger, he's stronger, they've got a similar reach as well. Even though Roberson's a little bit taller than him, Marvin Vettori fills out well for the weight class. Also, any chance of me picking Roberson as an underdog, it was a real close fight to begin with. But Roberson botched a weight cut about a few weeks ago. You know? That is only going to weigh the scales against him, in my opinion. I think that Marvin Vettori's just increased his chances of winning by the fact that Carl Roberson completely messed up a weight cut not too long ago and was in critical condition, so much so that he had to pull out of a fight the day before the fight. Marvin Vettori's going to get the job done. I believe he's going to keep he's going to keep a level head in the fight, because I know he could get emotional here and start throwing bombs. What I don't like about this one for Carl Roberson is that he goes backwards not so good. He's very good when he gets his space and he can throw his leg kick, which is something that's going to work here against Marvin Vettori, because Vettori does sit quite heavy on his lead leg with his boxing heavy style. Carl Roberson moving backwards is not the same guy, and Marvin Vettori is a very good forward pressure combo puncher that never stops his combinations when he's got a guy moving backwards. I think Marvin Vettori is actually going to get a finish. The botched weight cut taken into consideration, Vettori gets it done in the third round by TKO. Jessica Eye versus Cynthia Calvillo. I'm picking Jessica Eye. Terrible main event, and when I make my full prediction video for this fight, I will go in depth as to just how disgraceful this is of a main event. We've got the number 10 ranked strawweight, if she's even that, I'm not even too sure, taking on number 3 ranked or number 2 ranked flyweight in the world in Jessica Eye. She might be number 3 now that Caitlin Chookagian just beat Antonina Shevchenko. I'm not too sure. She's probably number 2. Jessica Eye is going to win this fight. The odds are really close, which I found quite shocking, to be honest with you, because I thought Cynthia Calvillo was going to be a huge underdog. And actually coming into this fight, I was like, I don't mind that. I might pick Cynthia Calvillo because this is a 50-50 fight in my opinion. There's no real way of telling what's going to happen when we get in there because there never really is in women's MMA. But Cynthia Calvillo, if she was a huge underdog, I might risk a prediction on her winning. But I saw the odds. Eye is a narrow favourite. And Cynthia Calvillo is even Stevens. That's weird to me. That's really weird to me. And if Anthony Rocco Martin, I saw an interview of him talking about this main event, I saw an interview of him when he was talking about this main event at some point in the interview, and he mentioned that the only reason the UFC is making this fight is so that Cynthia Calvillo can get a big win in the main event, and they've organised it so that Cynthia Calvillo will win. I don't believe that, but for those odds to be that close, I think the odds makers do believe what Anthony Rocco Martin said. I think Jessica Eye is still going to win, though. I mean, I could be blind here to a very obvious sign that Cynthia Calvillo is probably going to get a robbery decision, but Jessica Eye is going to win this one. She's got a reach advantage. She's way bigger than Cynthia Calvillo. She's got great takedown defense. She's way better at boxing. Cynthia Calvillo is pretty good. Jessica Eye's got more experience going the distance, got more experience going 5 rounds. Also, Cynthia Calvillo is not a young girl. She's 32. You know, like, if she was 25 and improving rapidly between each fight, maybe I'd change my mind on things. She's 32 now. You know, she's not a young talent. Even though she's new to the game of MMA, she's not a young talent. So I'm going to favour the experience of Jessica Eye, and I think she's going to get the job done by a boring 5-round unanimous decision, 50-45. Cynthia Calvillo won't be able to take her down. Jessica Eye is going to get the job done. Boring 5-round 50-45 decision, every round edged minorly to Jessica Eye landing about 2 more strikes. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Goodbye.